Chase at the 40. Look at that move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Toss here. Mixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins. Touchdown.
Drives. Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Good day, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, episode 12 is here. We have another great show. I'm so excited, and another outstanding guest. But before we get there, Maan, how was your week?
It was good, man. I had a busy week. My house is falling apart. Stressed about that, but I'll tackle that project after this.
You got the money pit going on over there, huh?
It's yeah. Let's not get into it.
Well, let's get into the show. I'm so excited again, Maan. This is one of you and my favorite guys. I'm so excited to have him on the show. Our guest today, he does an outstanding job of covering our Cincinnati Bengals. He covered them for the Dayton Daily News, and now currently he covers them for The Athletic. And he also is the co-host of Hear That Podcast, Growlin', one of you and my favorite Bengal podcasts, his co-host with Paul Daner. We are so excited to bring on our guest. Bengal fans, give it up for the man, Jay Morrison. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I guess I had a shameless plug going on with the Hear the Podcast.
There we go.
I guess I didn't need it. So
hey, you don't need that, man. Trust me, Maan and I are huge fans. We'll always plug that, man. Thanks for coming on. It is such an honor to have you on, man. Maan and I, we have listened to you guys since you started the podcast, and we're big fans of what you guys do for The Athletic. So thank you so much for coming on, Jay.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, and thanks for those kind words. We work hard, and it's nice to know people appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jay, let's get right into this. You live in the Cincinnati area, and obviously you and Paul both. You guys are journalists first. I don't know how you do it, but you're journalists first. So your profession, you can't be so much tied up into the fan part of it. It's hard to do that, right? But how did you handle this past year? Was it hard not to get wrapped up in all the excitement and everything going on in the city? And obviously our Bengals making that Super Bowl run. How tough was it for you not to get wrapped up in just the awesomeness of our Bengals season this year?
It's not that hard not to get wrapped up, but you do. I mean, you feel it. On game day, you're just so locked in on reporting and doing that. But throughout the week, we have friends and family that we talk to, and you feel the excitement from them. And, it was kind of a telling point was my wife and son, actually, I don't know, they spent a crazy amount of money for tickets to the playoff game against the Titans. And I was like, there's the power of Joe Burrow right there. My wife would never spend that kind of money for a football game. But we had some friends that were going, and we're like, let's go make a weekend of it in Nashville. And so after McPherson kicks the game-winning field goal, my wife is panning around to everybody going crazy because they were in the upper deck, and it was all Bengal fans. And so she's getting this pano shot and doing a full circle of all the Bengals fans celebrating. And the last person she comes to is my 21-year-old son, and he is bawling his eyes out. And I'm like,
yes,
you kind of forget sometimes the emotional attachment that fans have to these teams, and we view it as just a job and something to do. And something like that really kind of drove it home. I was so glad she showed me that video. And really the whole weekend, she said he was just hugging her the whole time and thanking her for bringing him on the trip. And I know all of you Bengal fans out there made them feel at home at Jim's tailgate. And so it was a great experience. And that's how it goes. You go out to a bar, you go to some friend's house for dinner, that the Bengals always come up. And when if the team is really good or really bad, it makes our job easy. It's when they kind of float in that 8-8 kind of boring zone is when you're wishing
Right.
for some more exciting things to cover. But yeah, it wasn't that hard to stay. You got a job to do, you have to do it, but you still kind of get wrapped up in it just by being around people that are wrapped up in it.
And what a crazy 3 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just the way the games work themselves out is just, and myself being a football coach, that doesn't happen very often when you have the way each one of those games, the Bengals fought back. They, made big plays when they had to make big plays. I mean, that's just so hard to do, to put together 3 games like that against 3 teams that, some might say were 3 of the hottest teams in the league at that point. And yeah, just an incredible 3 weeks of Bengals football leading up to the Super Bowl.
And I think that's why a lot of people are kind of looking for the regression this year, because they say everything went right. And to some degree, that's true. They didn't have a lot of injuries, but I take exception with the everything went right, because the nothing went right that first half in Kansas City in the championship game.
Nothing.
And they came back and won that. And they had times where things didn't look so good in that Tennessee game, even though they jumped up early and kind of, it felt like they controlled it. But you're right. They made the big play every time they had to make it. Can they do that again? Can they replicate that? Can they stay healthy again? And now the AFC is way more stacked than it even was last year. The schedule's harder. There's a lot of things working against them. And I think people look at that magical run and see it as just that, as magic and not as X's and O's. But I don't subscribe to the regression. I think they're going to be a better team than they were last year. The record may not be good because the conference is so much better and the schedule's harder, but I think we're going to see a better Bengals team in 2022.
Agreed.
Yeah, Jay, I had a follow-up to his original question. I think he probably answered it, but with all the Bengals success and there's so much demand for Bengal content now, from going to the Super Bowl and having all these star players right now. Does it make your job a little more challenging now, or is it easier because they're relevant?
It makes it more challenging because when a team gets good like this, then all the national folks start swooping in, and if a national person comes in and writes a story that you've already written in a different way, that's one thing. If they come in and uncover a new story that you haven't written all year, then your editor's like, "Whoa, what happened here?" So that always happens. They come in and they kind of get, I don't want to say preferential treatment, but sometimes they get some one-on-ones that maybe the regular beat guys don't get, just because if you do it for one, you got to do it for everybody, that kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, that does make, now last year was a little different because it was still mostly virtual. You weren't getting guys coming in and being able to go off to the side and talk to a guy one-on-one, face-to-face. We'll see what it's like this year. Now the locker rooms are back open and it's just wide open access, and not all teams are doing that. The Panthers had a press conference today with Baker Mayfield, still on Zoom. So the Bengals are at the front of the curve on letting the reporters back into the locker room, and we like to believe that that's going to lead to better coverage, because I think that's where Paul and I's strength are, is developing the relationships and getting players to trust you and being able to talk to these guys off the record and kind of get the inside scoop without everything just having to be cliche on the record talk. You get some real talk from players and coaches, and it leads to better stories down the road.
Another thing, Jay, two of the biggest topics this offseason has obviously been the Jesse Bates contract situation, and have the Bengals done enough to reinforce that offensive line? We know 4 of the starters on the line: Williams, Karras, Kappa, and Collins. Who do you think is going to be our left guard? And back to Bates, I know we're going to find out this week if they get a long-term deal going on. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but do you think that could become a distraction?
I don't think it will, just because I don't think Jesse doesn't seem like that type. He could have made it a distraction last year, and he brought it up, but he once the season started, he put it behind him and he put his nose down and he played. The only way it becomes a distraction is if he doesn't sign the tag and doesn't show up until the day before the opener, or maybe 2 or 3 games into the season. Then it can't it can't help but be a distraction because you've got this big question mark hanging out there. Will he or won't he? If he signs the tag and says, I'm going to play, I'm not going to leave 12 million on the table, which I think we all expect him to do. Yeah. I don't think it'll be a distraction. As much as these players have gone to bat and kind of been in his corner, it's not going to be a us against the front office type of thing. I think they all understand it's a business. A lot of them don't like to get involved in each other's business. So I'd be really surprised if it turns into a major distraction. As far as the O-line, I think it's Jackson Carman. They still are very high on him athletically. The question is maturity, and you can't show it all in OTAs, but I think he took enough steps forward that they believe the light has come on. Now, can he stay consistent with that? At the first hint of trouble, does he go into a shell? Does he start resisting coaching and technique and that type of thing? Is he late? Does he come back to camp overweight at all? I mean, those are all questions that need to be answered, but they firmly believe that he is a second round talent. It's just a matter of kind of getting him to be a professional. And you look at who they signed in the offseason on that offensive line. I think the talent alone is going to help Jackson Carman, but the professionalism of those guys, two of them have rings, and La'el Collins has been around forever. And even Frank Pollock, I mean, he may not have been able to crack that Jackson Carman shell last year, but year two, I think he's got the right people around him. And I suspect that he'll be the day one starter, and barring injury, I can see him keeping that job throughout the season because he is a far more talented guy than Cordell Volson, but Cordell Volson is everything you want in an offensive lineman from the intangible standpoint. So it's going to be a really interesting battle to see in training camp.
Good deal.
Yeah, Volson kind of has that glass eater. He seems like that type of guy that Paul Mon and
phrase
I
of the year.
That.
The phrase
we
of the
love
year.
that phrase, but as a coach, I love that. I love that phrase, and it that's what Pollock wants, and Volson seems to bring that to the P. I think too, with that offensive line, there's going to be a lot more competition, and competition breeds excellence. And I think hopefully that's what we get out of Jackson Carman is, Volson pushing him and some other guys pushing him and making him a better football player. Because obviously last year we know the offensive line was just a mess. There was no real consistency. And now when you have, like you mentioned, Jay, you have these talented guys that are bringing some consistency, are bringing some of that veteran leadership. Hopefully we see a different Jackson Carman.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody focuses on what the O-line improvement's going to do for Joe Burrow. I think people forget what it can do for Joe Mixon. I mean, both of those guys had good years last year with a suspect line, but man, with Joe Mixon's cutback ability, and you get everybody going in the right direction and doing their job and making the blocks they're supposed to make, and the way he can either take it with the flow or cut it back against the grain. If everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, he really could have a big year this year because defenses, they were reluctant last year to kind of focus on Chase and take him away till later in the year. And then you saw the way that opened things up for other people. I think you're going to see that from week one with the Steelers this year, where there's going to be a whole lot of attention on Jamar Chase, and some of these other guys are going to need to step up.
Well, and really we talked about it on a previous broadcast, but Joe Mixon really has never had a good offensive line. I mean, not one that you would think. I mean, look what he did in 17, 18, and 19. I mean, he put together quality seasons, and that offensive line was just a mess for those 3 years. I agree with you. I think we're going to see a huge step forward from our guy Joe Mixon. But let me ask you, I want to go back real quick, Jay, because you touched on it for a minute, but last week on our pod, I got a little bit on a soapbox. I don't like doing that. And this national media narrative, right? I do actually. I really do, Jay. This national narrative is driving me insane. I know you and Paul kind of touched on this before, but I just don't get it. To me, it's more of just laziness and lazy writing. But this Bengals football team, how can you not think that this football team is going to be good? And I understand. Listen, I understand the schedule and all these other things, but this young group of talent and the coaching staff, and I mean, they're returning almost the entire team, this Super Bowl team. Listen, luck is a big part of winning football games, but making a run like they did last year, that was not all luck. And luck is a very small part of going out and actually, competing and executing what you're supposed to be doing on the football field. Please, Jay, ease my pain, ease my frustration. Tell me, why is this national narrative so negative about our Bengals? I just don't understand it.
I think it's because the leap was so substantial last year. A lot of times like the Bills, we've seen them kind of grow, and they kind of take the next step every year, and they haven't been to a Super Bowl yet, but everyone's pegging them to go this year because you see them make those incremental steps. And when you have a Bengals team that makes that gigantic leap, I think it's just kind of a natural assumption. And you're right on the part about it being a little lazy. People tend to fall back on the same old Bengals mantra. But I mean, think about it. It's Joe Burrow's going into year 3. If they kept the offensive line exactly the same, you would still expect him to be better in year 3 than he was in year 2. Now you get concerned about the number of hits, but it's the same thing. Jamar Chase should be better in year 2. These guys are all kind of growing together. It's a young team. So many of these Super Bowl losers, even winners that fall apart the next year, it's because they went for broke. And they had a lot of older veterans, a lot of guys playing in the final year of their deal, and they can't afford to keep them all. That's not the case at all with this team. This is a team on the come. And another thing that people forget, it's not just players that get better. I mean, coaches get better.
Exactly.
Zach Taylor is not the same coach he was his rookie year. And Brian Callahan and Lou Anarumo, you saw what Lou Anarumo did last year on that playoff run, maybe as big of a factor as anybody in this franchise.
I agree.
The Super Bowl.
I agree.
So, and Darren Simmons has been around forever. I mean, I don't know how much more he can get better because he's been doing that same job for so long. But this is a staff that's growing and coming into its own, just as it's a roster that's coming into its own. And I think people overlook that part of it. They just see a team that's been down for a while. They make a big jump. It was probably a one-hit wonder. They can't sustain it. It'll be interesting to see if they start 3-1, 4-0, if they come out of the gate really hot, how quickly that narrative changes.
Oh, I think it's going to change really quick. And I know I sound like a homer, but to me,
what?
I'm a little bit of a homer, Jay. But to me though, it all, when some teams put runs together like that, like when the Eagles put that run together, quarterback goes down, guy steps in and has this incredible, yada, yada, yada. The story. We're talking about one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, that's the central piece of winning in the NFL. Winning it at this level is having that central piece. And that's not going to change for a long time. I think as long as Joe Burrow is on the field in a Bengal uniform, they're going to be competitive. I mean, they're going to be making these runs every year. To me, and I understand what you're saying, and I can understand a piece of that. But when you have a guy like Joe Burrow, and even with the young talent around him, they are only going to get better. You know what I mean? And to me, when you have that elite quarterback, that is the piece of the puzzle. That's the piece of the puzzle that's going to make you relevant for years, as long as he's around.
Well, elite quarterback, and you got at least one more year of him on a rookie deal, which is huge. Right. And so in 2 years from now, when he's making $50 million a year, it's one thing to have an elite quarterback, but you need to have some other guys around him. And they're not going to be able
that roster might change. That roster might change. Hopefully not, but it might change a little bit.
Yeah, it's destined to. It's going to have to. But yeah, you're right. It's as long as you've got, and that's what Bengals fans complained about for so long with Andy Dalton is, yes, he was a good quarterback, and if you put the pieces around him, he could win you games, but he was never going to put the team on his shoulder and carry you. Joe Burrow's a guy that if you give him substandard talent, he's still going to find a way to make this team relevant and help them win games, and there's nothing substandard about this roster right now. It is a very good roster. So, yeah, I mean, the Vegas line at 9.5 seems low to me. I would definitely hammer the over.
I agree.
Go ahead, Mom.
Okay. Hey, listen, Jay, I sent this question in to the Athletic Mailbag last week, and I think Paul answered it. I want your take on it. The Bengals tend to extend players in August, re-up their contracts or sign extensions with players. Do you think that's going to happen again this year? And if yes, who could be some candidates that possibly get extended in August?
Well, the thing is with Burrow and with Logan, they can't do that until next offseason.
Yeah,
So
I was thinking like maybe a Von Bell or somebody like that, or Jonah
yeah,
Williams.
Or Von Bell or who else?
Oh, like Von Bell, maybe a Jonah Williams, or maybe even a Jermaine Pratt. You think they could re-up them in August?
Yeah, they could. I don't think
Right.
they will. I think they're gonna see they very much are in favor of the trajectory of Jonah's career, but it just doesn't make sense to make that commitment right now. Based on what you've seen from him. Same with Jermaine Pratt. I think this is a big year for him. I'm not ruling it out, them re-signing him next year, but you've got Logan Wilson. You've got all these other young linebackers. It feels like he's a guy they're going to let walk. The bigger piece of this, too, is the answer to everything is Joe Burrow. It makes sense to get that deal done first and then, okay, take a look at your ledger and see what you can do after that. So I'd be surprised if we saw – any big commitments, any big extensions this year, and especially Von Bell, a safety that's going to cross over 30, and you drafted a guy who could be his replacement in Tyson Anderson, just like you drafted a guy in Dax Hill, could be Jesse Bates' replacement. Those guys can win you games, but I don't know how important the safety position is when you've got all these other skills positions that you need to lock up. So, you might see a small extension, but I don't think it's going to be nothing big this August. It's going to be wait and get the Burrow thing out of the way, and then see where everything else falls.
That could be 50 mil.
It likely will be.
Right. It's going to be crazy.
So we obviously have training camp right around the corner, and we as fans, this is when it starts ramping up a little bit. And obviously OTAs just ended and rookie mini camp, and those guys, they're not in pads or anything like that. But we asked Jeff and we asked Dan. We want to ask you, the guys that were there to see them every day live. What takes did you get out of OTAs? Were there certain players that really impressed you? Whether they are rookies or vets, or are there any maybe diamonds in the rough that we have to look forward to seeing in coming up in training camp and preseason?
Yeah, it is really hard to evaluate, especially OTAs in general can't tell you a whole lot. And then the way the Bengals approached them with almost no 11-on-11 work, there wasn't much there. But I will say one guy, and it's not just because I wrote about him right after the draft, but Kwame Lassiter, the undrafted wide receiver. Yes, T. Higgins was out, but it was surprising the amount of run he got with first team guys and making plays and making catches and being in the right spot every time. And that's what his coach told me. His wide receivers coach from college said is he's a guy that you are never going to have to worry about not knowing where he's supposed to be or what he's supposed to do. He's like, he will have that on lockdown from the moment he gets the playbook. And it's just a matter of whether he has the skills to compete at this level. And he is small, but he could win the punt return job. I really think, and I had it in my roster projection story, I think he's a guy that's going to make this 53-man roster, and they need another fourth, or they need a fourth wide receiver. I mean, Mike Thomas is solid, but I don't think he inspires any fear in defenses. And you need to. It's one area. Yes, offensive line needs depth, but they're pretty thin at wide receiver too. I think anybody in the league would take that top three, but you look at the depth behind them, and if one of them goes down, then all of a sudden it's not quite the crew that you were counting on. So he's a guy I would really keep an eye on. And then Cam Taylor-Britt just looks the part too, and we didn't see a whole lot of him because he was out toward the end of the OTAs, but I don't know if he's going to unseat Eli Apple week 1, but by mid-season, I would not be surprised to see him be the starter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Jay, you pretty much answered my question. I'm really concerned about the wide receiver depth also. Higgins, Chase, and Boyd, obviously elite. You can make an argument they're probably best trio in the league.
Yeah.
So you think that potentially they're going to target a fourth? Who could it be? Maybe a Will Fuller or somebody, or you think
Well,
they
I
could
don't know.
potentially trade?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll go out and get one.
Right,
Maybe they will, but
right,
they like what Mike Thomas can do.
right,
And then you just wait and see. They have 2 open spots right now, so they've got money.
right.
But it's like the whole OBJ thing that was floating around for a while. It just never made sense. He's not going to come here and be a fourth receiver, and you're not going to pay a guy like that. He just had the ACL in February in the Super Bowl. I mean, that even the most optimistic of recovery, you're not going to have him for a bulk of the season. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them, but I think barring an injury or some other situation, I think we're going to see any kind of signing of a guy that can come in and be a number 4 receiver right off the bat.
Gotcha.
Well, let me ask you real quick, Jay. Is go back. We're going to go back just a minute, and you touched on it earlier as well. But this roster that the Bengals have put together these last couple drafts. I mean, these drafts they've accumulated so much young talent. I mean, obviously, again, I know I sound like a homer, but I think Joe Burrow right now is playing better football than any other quarterback in the NFL. You have 2 what I would think would be elite receivers. I mean, I could see T. Higgins pushing to be number 1 on a lot of rosters out there. You have the rookie of the year at the other wide receiver spot, and a guy like Logan Wilson, who I absolutely love. I think he is one of the unsung heroes of last year's run. He is an elite linebacker, a guy that, Bengal fans, we haven't had that in a very long time at that position. So the big 4, especially with Wilson and Chase and Higgins and Burrow, we got some contract situations coming up, and you touched on it. I mean, we know Joe Burrow is going to be a big hit, and hopefully, I think we as Bengal fans, we're all hoping like, Joe, please take a little bit less money so we can get these other guys as well and keep this band together. What do you think? How do you see this whole thing playing out? I mean, obviously, there's no way they're letting Joe Burrow walk. That's never going to happen. But maybe those other 3, how do you see that whole thing panning out? Because obviously, we got 3 of them that are coming up very soon.
Yeah, I think Logan Wilson is a guy they will find a way to keep. Jamar Chase, they will want to, but you just look around the league. I mean, Kansas City couldn't afford to pay Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, and Green Bay couldn't afford to pay Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Can the Bengals afford Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? Jamar Chase, when it comes his time, he's probably going to be the highest paid receiver in the game. Can you have a $50 million quarterback and the most expensive receiver in the game? I think they would like to. And fortunately, they don't have to answer that question in the same offseason. But I think all of that kind of makes T. Higgins the odd man out. As great as he is he's been everything that they had hoped, both on and off the field. But you look at the number of receivers coming out these days, and you figure you can get another T. Higgins as a late first round pick or mid second round pick, depending on where you're picking. I mean, the Bengals hope they're picking late every year, every round.
Hopefully 32 from here on out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, but it feels like those guys are gonna be there. You're not going to get a Jamar Chase type at number 5, but you look at the quality of wide receivers that go from 25 to 35 in any draft, and those are difference-making guys. And T. Higgins is one of them. He went number 33. I just think with the amount of wide receivers and what the college game has become, there's just going to be so many options out there. Now they got to pick the right one, but I think the availability will be there. And I think it's just a matter of managing your resources. That it's nothing against T. Higgins personally, but you can't sign everybody. And I do think he will be the odd man out. We'll see. I mean, they've got him for 2 more years at least. Right. So whether if they would franchise tag him, you're still talking about making him one of the highest paid receivers in the game because the wide receiver franchise tag number is so high.
It's
so
crazy.
I think everybody enjoy T. Higgins while you got him. I'm not kicking him out the door right now, but it's going to be really hard to keep him with all the other contracts they're going to need to be handing out.
Yeah, agreed.
Hey, Jay, one of my favorite players from last year's draft did not make your 53-man roster prediction.
Jay, he has been, I've heard about this for a week. He has not been happy. I will tell you mine.
Nah, listen, I love Tyler Shelvin. I think he's going to be a stud. Why didn't he make the cut? Can you elaborate?
It's been disappointment at every turn. And I just wonder, he was hurt in OTAs and he couldn't get into a game. He couldn't be active on game day. It was a lot of it was kind of the Jackson Carman thing, that the being a pro and the stuff off the field and weight and all that. It's kind of until you show me, I don't know that. And would they be willing to cut him a 4th round pick and take the chance somebody else wouldn't sign him? I don't know. And maybe they play some roster gymnastics and put him. They keep him and then put him on IR. I don't know how serious this forearm injury is, but it did keep him out of the end of OTAs. It doesn't. I haven't heard anyone in the organization speak glowingly of him, and that's not to say people are ripping him or critiquing him, but there's a lot of unmet promise so far, and until he can show that he can be a decent piece. I got him on the outside looking in. I mean, he can do one thing, and that is plug the run. And you've got DJ Reader, you've got Josh Tupou to do those things, 2 guys that you can count on implicitly. So I don't know if there's room for Tyler Shelvin. I'd like to see him get it turned around and realize his potential, but right now it just feels like he's on the other side of that bubble.
Another thing, I guess in a few days you're going to have that mock turtle soup kickoff luncheon at Paul Brown Stadium. Do you actually eat that?
I did until I read Paul Doherty's column on what was in it, and then I no longer eat it.
Have you ever asked the Bengals to have Arby's cater it for you? I had Arby's today.
They couldn't even get a pizza sponsorship last year, so that would be great if pizza. I mean, Arby's doing burgers now. Maybe they start doing pizza. They could get Arby's pizza for the post game, but I would never ask for that at the pre-camp luncheon. That is surf and turf. It's prime rib or filet and some salmon, and the mock turtle soup gets all the headlines, but it is a delicious meal all the way to the end when you get the orange sherbet and the cinnamon stick dipped in chocolate. It's something we all look forward to every year, even if
that's good to know. I just thought it was mock turtle soup. That's it. I'm like,
no, it's a full meal, and yes, I say thanks, but no thanks. I don't even want him putting the soup in front of me. I don't even want to look at it.
Well, I'll tell you, we are big Arby's fans. I'm so excited, Jay. The high school that I'm the head coach at, we are getting an Arby's literally a block over. I am going to just destroy. I am so excited. We only have 2 in our county, so a third one.
One in my town.
Yeah. I just had Arby's for lunch yesterday. You know where we went on vacation? Tybee Island. It's this tiny little island off of Savannah, Georgia. They only have one chain restaurant on the entire island, and it's an Arby's, and I didn't eat there once the entire vacation.
What? Jay, come on, man.
And it's about 0.2 of a mile from the house, too. It's an easy walk, but it's just you're on the beach, and the women are making sandwiches for you, and just never made it to Arby's.
Life is good. Life is good.
Jay, before we get out of here, we had an awesome discussion before we got on air, and I want to go into this because Mon and I, we are big hard rock metal guys, just like you. Yes, I remember the last Bengal game. Mon and I, we made the trip, the 16-hour trip, and he was driving, I was DJing, and we went through, all the greats, everything from Pearl Jam to Metallica to Tool and all the way up, the whole trip up to Cincinnati. But we're big fans. I go to a lot of concerts too. I need to know, Jay, your three all-time favorite concerts, or maybe just your 3 favorite artists that you've seen live. Who are they?
Foo Fighters.
Oh, yes. Good one.
I'll go Shinedown. I saw Shinedown. I was in the second row last year. They were a small place in Dayton, and it was amazing. And then we saw them at the big arena in Columbus at the Schottenstein Center back in April, I believe that was. And then we saw them at Rockville at the Daytona Speedway, and they only got 4 songs in. And so just today, my wife and I decided that a week from Saturday, we're going to drive to Canada and see them. They still had some really good seats available for pretty cheap. And it's Windsor, so it's just right across the river from Detroit. It's only about a 3.5 hour drive. So we're going to go see them again. We love them. That third spot. Yeah, I think I've seen Breaking Benjamin more than any other band. We love them, but I don't think they're a great live act. They're good because we know every song. Maybe I go back to my first concert ever in AC/DC in 1981.
Oh, nice!
Just that you never forget your first, and I was just so blown away. And we couldn't have had worse seats. We were all the way at the back of the arena and the next to the last row, but it was still 15 years old, me and 2 buddies and one of the buddies' mom, who she might've been rocking out harder than we were. And it was a really memorable experience, opening with Hell's Bells and closing with For Those About to Rock and shooting those cannons off. And so I'm sure I'm probably leaving out one that I liked better, but off the top of my head, I'm going to go with that first one, AC/DC.
Well, Maan in 81 was like in his 30s, so I'm sure Maan probably. I'm sure I never got a chance to see AC/DC, but I don't know if you've ever seen Tool live.
I have not, no.
Oh, Jay, if you get a chance, you have to see. They are one of the best live bands. And then Rush, too. I mean, I saw Primus open up for Rush when Primus came out with Sailing the Seas of Cheese. And I remember we were just kids, and we were so excited about Primus. We were all going to see Primus, and there was a great pit, and the Primus puts on a great show. Rush comes out.
I was there.
Rush comes out, and you can hear a pin drop. I mean, for the next hour and a half, it was just incredible. I mean, it was hard to even move. You're so entranced on what's going on stage. They are so great live.
I saw the Monsters of Rock in '88 in Tampa. Van Halen, Scorpions. Dokken was the third act, and then Metallica, and then Kingdom Come, which was weird. You'd think Metallica, they really, I guess, were about to take off really big time.
Yeah.
But I was excited about that. Dokken has always been my band, but they're terrible live. Just that. They really are. I've seen them, and they've never been good. Those guys just didn't like each other, and it translated on stage. Mm-hmm. You could tell. It was just a rough act, but I wish I could go to more concerts, but when you got kids in college, it's hard to do.
Yeah. My next concert is Thursday night, and I don't have great expectations, but it's Motley Crue and Def Leppard and Poison and Joan Jett. We're driving up to Cleveland for that state. We got free tickets from a friend that couldn't make it, and so it's like, how can you turn those down? And then it turns out we look at the tickets, and they're in the 7th row. They're right up front. So
that's awesome. Actually, I'll tell you, Jay. I think they were just in Tampa. Maybe
Orlando. They were in Orlando.
Orlando, like 2 weeks ago, and somebody I know went to the show. They said it was awesome.
Yeah,
they said it was awesome.
So. Yeah, Vince Neil is not the front man he used to be.
No, he's not. I've seen some clips.
But,
Oof, the comments are not nice.
But you're also going to Pearl Jam,
yes.
And that is something to look forward to because they are another band absolutely incredible live. Love
that
Pearl
is
Jam.
the bookend of my athletic career. That I got hired on August 11th, 2018 at the Athletic, and the Bengals were playing the Cowboys in a preseason game in Dallas on August 13th. And I said, we've got tickets to see Pearl Jam at Wrigley Field. And they're like, no, go to the concert. There's no reason to go to so my first Bengals game as a member of the Athletic, I skipped.
You're at Wrigley Field at Pearl Jam.
Exactly.
Well, that's hard. It's hard not to blame you for that. Yeah. I'm sure that was an incredible show. Jay, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Again, you guys, you and Paul, what you guys do with the Athletic and hear that podcast ground. You guys give us so much great content. We're just so honored to have you on. We got to have your partner in crime on now too. So we got to get Paul on and hit him up and get some of his views. But thanks
He's
again
not a
for
rock
coming
and roller,
on,
I
man.
don't think. I think he's a fish
No, I don't
guy.
think. Yeah, I don't think he's a
Hey,
rock and
Fish
roller.
and 90s rap. If you can get
Is
some
it?
90s,
Oh,
you can get him
90s
going
rap.
on 90s rap.
I'll have to go back.
I'll get
in the
my son to help
archives.
me.
Little vanilla ice
Yeah.
and maybe some Ice Cube and some iced tea. And
Yeah,
Well, thank-
jeez.
once again, Jay, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Bengal
Yeah.
fans, give it up for Mr.
Thank
Jay
you.
Morrison.
Thank you, Jay. We appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah,
Take
thanks
care.
for having me. It was a lot of fun. I'll let Paul know to join you guys when he can.
Oh, we
All right,
appreciate
buddy.
it, man.
Thank you.
We'll have to hook back up after the season, man. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely.
Thank you,
anytime.
Jay. Take care, buddy. Be safe.
Thanks,
All right.
Jay.
See you guys.
That was awesome. What a good guy, man.
What a great guy. What
Really
a great
nice guy.
What a great guy. And again, man, you and I talk about it. It's tough. It's tough doing a podcast, right? You got to have chemistry. You got to have all those other things. And him and Jay and Paul are just so great on the Here with the Podcast ground and the Athletic. I mean, we're huge fans of all the things they do for the Bengals. So, but once again, Bengal fans, thank you for joining us. If you like this pod, make sure you like, share the podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Check us out on all of the podcast platforms: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple. And if you guys have the time, if you can go on and give us a 5-star review, we would so much appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9 or on Instagram, the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. Once again, Bengal fans, give it up for Jay Morrison. Man, he was awesome. Guys, make sure you tune in next week. We have another great show for you right here on the Bengals Pulse. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Bengal fans, hooday. We will see you next week.
See you guys. Love you.